Hello and welcome along once again to It'll Be Alright in the 90s, the podcast that seems to mention Alex's brother Adam earlier every single week. I'm Stu Joslin, and joining me as always is Adam Greenwood's brother, Alex Greenwood.
Hello.
How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks. I'm looking forward to this episode and having another family connection. I know you just mentioned my brother, but
yes.
Talk to us for this one.
Yes, this is one I've been wanting to sort for a while. We've got mine Papa is coming on to talk to us tonight. He went to a lot of gigs in the 90s and saw some great artists, and I've been trying to cajole him to come along and talk to us about it, and he's finally acquiesced. I think it's going to be another good episode, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Yeah.
Before we go any further, as always, we have a sponsor for this week's episode, and this week we are sponsored by Tandy. If you simply quote the code ALLRIGHT90s at participating stores, you can receive 10% off any item in the Gen Xer range. That includes microsystems, sat-navs, radio alarms, and more. And if you go to the Emery Gate Chippenham store, because it's our local store, they've agreed to a 20% off code there.
Wow.
So that's Tandy. You've got questions, we've got answers.
I've always thought they were better than Dixon's.
I don't
care what anyone says.
Powerhouse, sod off. Just a couple of things in the post bag from episodes past, and the Ghostwatch episode. We've had some correspondence from somebody called Ant Tita, and I've just realised that is a that's not a real name, is it? But anyway, thank you, Ant, for getting in touch. And he says about Ghostwatch, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. I was a kid at the time. I knew it was a drama, but it was so well done. If you suspended your disbelief, it easily took you to the same place as those who didn't know better. It certainly shook me, and I couldn't bring myself to watch anything that blurred the lines between fact and fiction. And 999 was one of those shows, so I'll be giving that episode a listen too. So thanks for that, Ant. Thanks for your interest, and we hope you enjoyed the 999 episode as well.
Yeah,
and we hope you can get in touch with your thoughts on that. Secondly, and a little more seriously, our Ghostwatch episode moved a friend of mine to get in touch with me with his own paranormal story. Now I'm going to redact names here, and I'm going to keep him anonymous. He's let me know I can read it out. So here we go. Thank you for sharing this with us. When we moved into our house in the early 90s, we had only been married for a few years. And year after year, spooky things would happen. And year after year, the events got more frequent and more in your face. Some examples are kitchen cupboards opening on their own, dark shadows walking downstairs and hallways, me and my wife being woken up with somebody pulling your hair or blowing in your face. We went out one night and we got in a babysitter. Later that night, we had a phone call from the babysitter's mum as the girl had freaked out and she said she'd seen a ghost. The mum stayed on the phone to her daughter until we got back home. We would also get home from work and find that quilts had been turned over, not in a messy way, but folded neatly. My wife's mum and dad came round, and her dad freaked out as one of the family photos, when he looked at it, had the face of somebody else in it. Then it went back to normal. Towards the last few years, the events were getting worse, so we employed a medium, and she hit the nail on the head. Years ago, after IVF failures, my wife got pregnant and lost the baby at about 4 months, which obviously was quite heartbreaking, and it was a boy. The medium never knew this, but she told us that the spirit was that of a baby boy who was growing up in the house and who was playing with us because we were his parents. This was getting hard to hear and at first quite upsetting. She told us the boy's name was David, and this is where it smacked us in the mouth, as my wife and I hadn't told the medium about this, but David was the name we were going to give the baby. The medium also told us that the boy was unhappy with the curtains in the hallway. Again, the medium didn't know, but my wife had put new curtains up a few days before. We also found out that the ghost would spend time in our son's bedroom keeping an eye on him. We decided we didn't want anyone else involved or to exercise the house, and we would live with the goings-on. So many people who came to our house afterwards said they felt the presence, and a lot of people said that things happened like putting their keys down and then turning up in another room. When we decided to move away, we took some advice on how we could take whatever was going on with us. We acted on the advice, but nothing has happened since we moved, and the people who moved into the house haven't heard or seen anything. So we think the lad has now passed over to wherever you go after that. You may think this is far-fetched, but this is what happened to us. So there you go. That's a real-life some real life paranormal activity from
Wow.
from my friend there, who, as I say, I'll keep him anonymous, but thank you very, very much for sharing that story with us. And I don't know about you, but while I was reading that really did send the old shivers down the spine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for sending that in. That's really obviously very emotionally intense for you, and yeah, like you said, Stu, shivers down my spine, but also emotional. Best correspondence we've had up to now, I'd say.
I would think so. Absolutely, absolutely. Right, well, shall we talk about some live music in the 1990s then?
Let's do it.
Joining us this week to discuss his experiences of live music in the 1990s is Wiltshire's greatest authority on heavy metal, formerly of Warhead, the Joslin Slater Project, and latterly the Squad. It gives me no pleasure whatsoever to welcome to the podcast my old man, Glyn Joslin. How you doing, man?
Thank you, Stu. Thank you very much. Yes, good to be here.
No, thanks very much for coming on and imparting your years of experience about the old live music in the 90s.
It's good to have someone a bit wiser on the pod for a change.
You won't be saying that when this is finished.
Before we get going, you have, I don't know if you know this, I know you listen to the pod, but you have become somewhat of a bit of a pod hero. The various stories have come out about you over the 12 or so episodes we've done, and we just wanted to open by fact checking some of this, because we don't want to have incorrect stuff coming out about you. So first of all, did somebody drive directly towards you on Box Hill when you were driving your red Escort on your side of the road?
Yes.
Somebody did do that?
They did, yes.
Right, and we never found out what happened?
I don't really know what was going on there. Whether they had a few pints or not, I don't know. But, they won. All of a sudden, they just went onto our side of the road and didn't really know what to do. I sort of broke a little bit, and then all of a sudden, he just swerved back, and away he went. Huh. But so, I don't really know what...
there we are.
That is true.
That was the birth of the Wiltshire. Was it the Wiltshire?
Yeah, the Northwest Wiltshire Welcome. That's right. Yeah. Did you tell me off for listening to an electronic album by Les Rhythm Digital called Dark Dancer when I was about 12 or 13?
Most probably. I don't really remember, but it sounds like I would have done.
Okay, that's Joe Barter's recollection, by the way.
Was he there at the time?
He might have been.
Oh,
he might have been. Yeah, he was the one
probably,
that got me onto the album.
He's probably correct. I probably did. Yes.
Yeah. Did the entire household hate Michael Schumacher?
We weren't his biggest fans, biggest fans, I should say, because we were all rooting for Damon Hill and people like that. And I think he did come across as quite arrogant, but when you look back at it now, I think you have to be a little bit in that sport. You've got to be a bit arrogant, a bit. That's just fair enough. But it's very sad what happened to him in. Later on, obviously, so wish them all the best.
Of course. And finally, was Echo the Dolphin the worst Mega Drive game we ever had?
Yes, definitely. I don't think we ever got anywhere with it, did we?
I don't think we did. No, not even past the first.
We could get him to jump out of the water, and that was about it.
That was about it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's a waste of money. That was.
Well, there we are. That's the questions answered from previous episodes of the pod.
Wasn't there a question about the Fiesta? Something like you being driven home from the hospital or something? No, because the Fiesta turned up at your house, didn't it? So it can't have been that.
That's right, yeah.
I thought there was some other car question. I should have written it down.
I would have been driven home from hospital in the red Escort, wouldn't I? That wasn't at the same time that the car swerved on the other side of the road, was it?
No. Okay.
An omen.
Did we have the red Escort when you were born?
I think so. I can't remember any car.
I remember bringing you home from the hospital in the red Escort. You were sat in the front seat. You have one of those seats where the kids' seats sort of like face backwards.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think you're allowed to do that anymore.
Mum was in the back, and because you were seat belted in the seat in the front. Yeah.
Well, there we are. Maybe that's a mystery that will remain unsolved.
I think I brought you home a couple of times from Bath after you had a few sherbets.
Yes.
I don't know. That's probably Fiesta, was it?
Well, we won't go into that. No.
I've still got that patch of grass on there.
Yeah, again, we won't go into that either.
You want to talk about that?
That happened in the 2000s.
Oh, okay.
He says reaching for a pint. Literally drinking a pint as he says it.
If you want to know, I did have one too many at the Two Pigs one night. I came home, threw up in the front garden, went inside, went to bed, and then when I came downstairs in the morning, a little worse for wear, my mum was peering out of the kitchen window, turned to me and said, "Next door's cat has thrown up in the garden again." And I was like, that was just regular Two Pigs beer. That was just a regular swill.
Too much.
So there you go. But hey, we live and learn, don't we? we're here to talk about the live music that you went to see in the 90s.
Yeah, obviously I started watching live music really to begin with in the late 80s, really. When I first started getting into more the rock sort of side of stuff. And then gradually the new wave of British heavy metal had come through by then. And Iron Maiden and Def Leppard and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, I'd been down to the what they call the Bristol hub now.
It's called the Beacon? The Beacon.
The Beacon, the Beacon, that's right. So, yeah, I used to go down quite a lot. So I saw Michael Schenker, UFO, Scorpions. I think the first one I saw was Motorhead, I think. And so, yeah, and then obviously gradually moved into the 90s. And that's when I started. The first one we're going to talk about was my very first stadium gig. The very first big stadium gig I went to. So
great.
Yes.
So it's the Rolling Stones. It's Wembley Stadium. It's July the 7th, 1990. Just before the Italian 90 World Cup started, I would suppose. The first thing I want to ask you is, you're well regarded amongst certainly my friends as a man who would struggle to catch a bus into the town centre. So what I'd like to know is, how did you manage to get to all these gigs in the 90s that you went to, presumably on your own?
The ones in the 80s, obviously, were going down to Bristol. So one of us, I think like Steve or whoever. I think I went to one gig on a motorbike with a chap on his bike. But this one, the Stones one, what happened was I was actually listening to the radio at work and to GWR. I think Heart owning now. And of course they were in Wootton Bassett then, and they had a competition on or something, and they just said we got Stones tickets for Wembley. First people to ring up can get them, and there's a coach provided as well. So I think I just rang up. I got 2 tickets. I had to go up to Wootton Bassett to actually pick them up as well. I got one for my brother as well, your Uncle Ian.
Of course.
But of course, the coach didn't come to Corsham. We had to go to Swindon to actually get the coach. So that's what happened on that first one.
Were those tickets free, did you say? Or
No.
It was just first come, first serve.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you had to pay for them. I got the ticket here, and it was then £22.50 to see the Stones at Wembley. Plus
a tenth of what it is now.
Yeah. Plus whatever the coach was as well. So it's probably ended up being about £35 or something like that altogether.
Well, I mean, we went in 2018, didn't we, to see them in Cardiff, and it would have been, I think it was about £90 per person, something like that.
I think it was when we saw them the last time, because we saw them in 2006.
We did, yes,
as well.
Yeah.
The last time was £75, I think, each. So, and that was back up in the gods.
Yes.
So I think on this one you could just sit where you liked. Get on the floor, on the stadium floor, and all this sort of thing. So that's how we got the tickets for this gig. My first big, as I said, stadium gig, and it was a good day, a sunny day, I think, as well, which made it all the better. Yeah, it's very, very good.
What was the sound like in sort of early 90s stadium gigs? What was the sound quality like compared to now?
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. What I can remember is, now when you go to big gigs, you get all the big video screens, don't you?
Yeah.
And you can see. I like to think then they only had one video screen, because all the rest of it was just like drapes hanging down, like with the covers of the albums and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
So there's only one big video screen. I think the sound wasn't too bad. Then again, sometimes you go to gigs and you think the sound should be better than what it is, because nowadays you've got all the graphic equalizers and a whistle thing and whatever,
Nowadays,
but
graphic
I think it all depends on what day you get them, what day you go and all that sort of thing. But as I remember, because obviously it's like 30 years ago,
31 years ago, just gone. Some are just gone.
Yeah. It's very hard to remember exactly what it sounded like, But we were just in awe of it, because this is the first time my brother and I had actually seen them. So we've been big fans for a long time. I can remember when I first heard the Stones, because I spent the first 10 years of my life, basically 10 years of my life, in Germany, because my father was in the army. What I can remember in Germany was just playing football all the time. Didn't really hear any music. Maybe heard the Beatles. I can remember She Loves You for some reason.
I might play in the Last of the Summer Wine theme tune under this bit.
I'll just give you the background story to it all.
Set in the scene.
And but when we come back here in about 1970, 71, of course, I went to primary school. Ian went to the Caution School, which is then, of course, was the Secretary Modern School for boys. Mm-hmm. It was just a boys' school then. And one day he came home with an album. He was playing it in his bedroom or whatever. And all of a sudden he came out to me and said, come and listen to this. So okay. So the very first Stones song I ever heard was 19th Nervous Breakdown. Mm-hmm. And what he was on about was the bass line at the end.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you know the song, but it's the Bill Wyman dive bombing bass line at the end. And I was hooked from then on. We both were. But this was actually the very, very first time we'd actually been able to go and see them ourselves. So, yeah, it was a big day for us Stones fans.
Brilliant.
That's fantastic.
There's no doubt about the quality of the sound that the next show we're going to talk about. So we're moving up to 1992, May the 20th. And this is a huge band in a small venue.
Yes.
This is Kiss on the Revenge Tour of 1992. And they visited what was then Cardiff Ice Rink.
Yes.
It's not there anymore. It was demolished in 2006.
Yeah. No.
This is a gig that you've always told me about in the past, but for the sheer loudness of it. But
yeah.
There was an incident that happened at the gig which you don't remember at all, but which the whole gig is probably most famously remembered for.
I've only heard about this quite recently.
Yes.
I think you told me about it.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of years ago, maybe. This is Kiss, and this was basically the loudest gig I've ever been to, because they're not known for being quiet. And, of course, it was indoor, so everything come at you at a rate of knots. And I went with my brother-in-law, Colin, Stuart's uncle, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, and he said to me he could feel the music pressing against his body. You know, he could feel it really pushing him backwards and all this sort of thing. And anyway, yes, it wasn't until a few years, I'll say a couple of years ago, that I heard that the roof caught fire at one point.
Yeah.
And when I looked, you can watch the gig actually on YouTube. Somebody filmed it. Now, 92, would there have been mobile phones with cameras?
No. This would have been, somebody would have hodded a camcorder in on their shoulder into the pit of the Cardiff Ice Rink.
Yeah. But on the third song, which is Heaven on Fire, of course, it starts off with a woo sort of thing. Thank you. And when the band comes in, all the pyros go up.
Yeah.
And I think that was when it must have. Well, I don't think it caught fire. I think it singed the roof, basically. But I do think there was about £40,000.
Yes.
So I expect the insurers had to pay for that. But
to your memory, the gig wasn't stopped.
Nope.
Nobody was evacuated.
Nope.
It just rolled on.
Yeah.
And it's rock and roll.
It is rock and roll. It seems like they've just come to this venue, which is a lot smaller than the ones they've been playing, and just set the pyros for the normal. Yeah. But the roof's like, 12.
They've set it on like no roof setting.
I'll say if you watch the video, it says about the third song. It's a Heaven's on Fire. Yeah, you see it. You see it all go up. Yeah, but again, it was, like I said, a very, very loud gig, but it was very, very enjoyable. And also the support band, Danger, I think they were. Yes, another band. I bought their CDs after that as well. So
there we are.
Not only watched Kiss, watched another band and bought their CDs. Although I wasn't actually a massive fan of Kiss at the time. I bought a couple of albums.
This was during the period where they were like unmasked, wasn't it? Like they weren't doing the face paint.
They were. They had that period.
About 5 years when they did sort of crazy nights and.
This was after crazy nights. But the funny thing was on this one, it's called the Revenge Tour, but the actual stage set they had was for the tour previously, Hot in the Shade, which was like a Sphinx they had with lasers coming out of the eyes, but I think only one was working.
That's
one eye Sphinx. So yeah, but and also the program was for Hot in the Shade as well. Whether I bought it from a dodgy program seller, I'm not quite sure, but I've still got it at home. It's in the attic, I think, somewhere. But so that was a bit weird.
Saving money all round by reusing the stage set and the programs.
Because obviously,
Spinal Tap.
Because obviously, the drummer in Hot in the Shade was Eric Carr, who unfortunately died between this and the Revenge Tour, and he was still in the program as well, and all this sort of thing. So because Eric Singer had joined
They hadn't like just made some stickers and put his face over the
no
in the program.
yeah,
Even more Spinal Tap.
Photoshopped him.
Fantastic. Yeah. So an infamous gig, and I did read actually in my research that the Kiss actually did lose money on the Revenge tour, and perhaps the roof incident at Cardiff Ice Rink might have had something.
It may have done. I do remember Paul Stanley coming on and saying "Hello England," and there was like a what? Something, but it was a very enjoyable. Yeah, again, a very, very good gig. I thought they were brilliant that night. I know they've gone back to the makeup now, but which is well, I wouldn't mind seeing them actually with them, because I think they're on their final tour now as it is now. Anyway, so but it was good. Another good one.
Obviously, during the course of this discussion about the gigs that you actually got to see in the 90s, obviously Alex and I, unfortunately, we loved the 90s so much, but we were too young to experience gigs like this when they were happening at the time. And we've picked out our own gigs from the 90s that we wish we could have been at. And I feel this is an opportune moment to slot one in. I don't know if you want to go first, Alex.
I found it slightly hard to actually pin down some specific gigs at first, because I kind of feel like all the bands that I grew to love or some got big around the end of the late 90s, early noughties, when I was really getting into music, I sort of missed them when they were coming up. There are lots of bands like Blink-182 and Deftones and Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. They're sort of people who I liked in the noughties, but I'd missed them when they were young and playing small venues. But I did eventually manage to find a couple of choices. And my first one, completely coincidentally, was on November the 4th, 1991, which is exactly 30 years ago today.
Oh, wow.
And it is Nirvana at the Keller Theatre in Bristol. And I've chosen this not because Nirvana are my favourite bands by any means. I do like them. I never really listened to them until actually kind of relatively recently. I kind of got into them a bit more. Well, I've chosen this because it's such an iconic band, such an iconic 90s band, and it also happens to be a venue that is kind of personal to me, because I used to go to the Beer Keller when it was a rock club, because it was a rock club for ever since I moved to Bristol, and then only recently closed down, sadly. But I used to go there for rock nights fairly regularly, and then I found out after a few years of going there that Nirvana had played this gig there, which kind of blew my mind, and it was in 91 as well. So this was it was in the same year that Nevermind came out, so they were either had just got massive or on the verge of getting massive. Yeah,
because the famous Top of the Pops appearance is in 91, isn't it? With Smells Like Teen Spirit, I think.
Yeah, I think this was actually the Nevermind tour. It must have been. If it's November, it would have been late enough in the year. So, I've just chosen it because it's that sort of combination of an incredible, iconic band with obviously a great live reputation in a venue that is kind of familiar to me and very local. And I just would have loved to have been there for that. I actually spoke to one of my friends from work in preparation for this, because she and her group of friends, she'd had the chance to go to this, but she for some reason had just decided she didn't really know Nirvana that well, I don't think. So she decided she just had a rain check. She just didn't fancy it that night. And then the next day she came into school or college and everyone's wearing like Nevermind t-shirts. And she was like, at that point, the penny dropped and she just thought, what have I missed here? And obviously, as time went on, she realizes that she missed the chance of seeing Nirvana in her hometown and in their peak. So I thought that was kind of funny. But that's my first choice, Nirvana in Bristol in 1991.
So back onto your list then, Glyn, and we're now looking at two bands in the same venue a couple of years apart, and it might be fair to say that these are bands on their uppers at this point. So we've got Poison and then Iron Maiden, both at Newport Leisure Centre in 1993 and 1995, respectively.
Yeah, sorry. Poison obviously were quite big in the late 80s with the two first albums they had out. Then they sort of went off the boil a little bit. Maybe just fell out of fashion. Just slightly, but I thought the third album, I think it's called Natured Tongue, and they lost their guitarist then, C.C. DeVille, as well. But anyway, they brought another album out, Native Tongue, and I thought it was quite good actually. It wasn't so glam, a bit more bluesy, sort of thing. Good guitarist as well on this one, and so they were playing venues like you thought they would be, and I just happened to see they were playing Newport Centre, and I went with a chap from work, Steve Matthews. It was good. Again, they got the video of the tour on YouTube. Then he filmed it at Hammersmith, I think, Odeon. But some of the bits outside they do, like, have you ever seen videos where they have a camera and people queuing outside?
Oh, and it goes down the line.
Goes down the line.
Yeah.
They did that at Newport. So whether we're on that or not, I don't know. But they did that. But it was a good gig. I think they're very, very good showmen, especially Brett Michaels.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good. So that was a good one. Iron Maiden was when Bruce Dickinson had gone.
Yes, and he'd been replaced by Biff Byford. No, I've got
Biff
that wrong.
Byford with his talking teeth. Yeah, and his singing
It's
teeth.
not Biff Byford.
No.
It's Blaze Bailey. You can see why I've made the mistake.
It sounds like you're making these names up.
No. But so Biff Byford is the lead singer of Saxon.
That's right.
And we were told a brilliant story about Biff Byford by a chap called Jamie Thayer, who's in a band called The Worried Men, who used to play at the Two Pigs. Is getting a lot of chat tonight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Used to play at Two Pigs anyway. Somehow he came up in conversation once, I don't know, but Jamie told us that he supported Saxon or something somewhere once, and Biff Byford apparently has a set of dentures which he talks with, and then he has a set of dentures with which he sings. And one night in the dressing room, he got them mixed up, and then he kind of barreled out on stage and couldn't sing a note and had to run off and change his teeth in the dressing room. And that's again, that's another famous story. But anyway, it's not Biff Byford at all. It's Blaze Bailey. He was what was Bruce Dickinson doing? He was flying planes. And
I think he wanted to go
really.
solo as well and all this sort of thing. And Blaze Bailey was a band called Wolfsbane, and he seemed like a perfect fit. I thought he was all right. A different style of vocals to Dickinson, because Dickinson's got this air raid type of siren vocal. Really can hit the high notes, where Bailey didn't do that. He was more of a gruff sort of thing. And if you watch the video, again, it's from Newport. Somebody's filmed it again, and I thought he was all right. But and like we said, Iron Maiden, before then they would have been playing Wembley Stadium and all these big shows. All of a sudden they're playing Newport Centre. So another band that gone out of fashion a little bit all of a sudden, and they dropped down to just doing like sports centres.
Well,
as such,
yeah, it's very much like when I saw BDI at Newport Leisure Centre, which was obviously the Liam Gallagher post Oasis band, and you could see when he came out, he was doing his thing, just standing stock still on the stage, but I could see he was thinking, what the fuck's going on here?
As it comes to this.
What am I doing here?
What am I doing at Newport Leisure Centre?
How did I get here? So that was like I said, that was a bit surprised when they. So I thought I'll go and see. And that was the first one I went. I did go on my own that time. I think all the rest of the gigs now, I went on my own because nobody else wanted to go with me. So, at the time. So there you go.
Lovely stuff. We moved then from a band on their uppers, Iron Maiden at that point, to a band possibly at their highest point in the UK. And this is a band that you go and see twice on the same tour with mixed results, it's fair to say.
Yeah.
So we're talking Bon Jovi on the These Days tour, Cardiff in 1995, and then just for a change of scene, because I think we've been in Wales for all of these so far, haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. We're off to Milton Keynes in 1996.
That's right,
the famous Milton Keynes Bowl.
On the other side of the country,
Yes. So what can you tell us about these?
Again, Bon Jovi were obviously a massive band. I think These Days come out and it knocked Michael Jackson off #1 spot, as he says on the video.
Live at London show.
That's right, live video then, wasn't it?
Yes, of course, yeah.
But what I always remember about this one was a really good lineup. Not only did you have Bon Jovi, you had Van Halen supporting them, a British band called Thunder, and a band called Crown of Thorns. So you had 4 bands on one day. It was the Sammy Hagar, or shall we say, Van Hagar.
Van Hagar, yeah.
So so it was a really really good game. All the bands were brilliant, and I think I bought CDs, or albums or whatever. Obviously, I'd already bought Van Halen stuff, but I hadn't bought Thunderwall, Crown of Thorns before, and so I invested some money into their coffers. So yeah, it was a brilliant gig. One thing I always remember about that gig was there was two blokes down on the floor of the stadium, and I don't know where he had a knife. I don't know where he got his knife from, but I thought they must, or scissors. It was either knife or scissors, right? And they had jeans on, and they were cutting their jeans off to make them into shorts. So it must have been a hot day. It must have been a really hot day for some reason, because they had their shirts off. I can remember that. And they were cutting their jeans off with, it must have been scissors rather than knife, but it must have been really sharp scissors, to make them into like denim shorts. Yeah, so that's one thing I remember.
Right, so we've got Kiss setting the roof on fire at Cardiff, and then we've got Crocodile Dundee in the crowd.
Exactly.
In the crowd in Cardiff.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But one thing I always remember as well was Van Halen were on, and everyone was getting a bit tired, and it seemed like Crown of Thorns, being Thunder, everybody's waiting for Bon Jovi. Van Halen's on there, and Sammy Hagar suddenly pipes up and says, "Hey, why don't we do this every Sunday?" Fuck off, Sammy. But they were good as well. Obviously, seeing Eddie Van Halen was awesome, and that was a very good gig.
Brilliant. And only £21 for the privilege, it says here.
At the time,
We've got all the original tickets here, by the way, so we'll get those up on the socials so that everybody can see what they're like. There's some lovely graphics going on here.
Yeah. I've got a big poster of that as well somewhere.
So then the tour moves away from the UK, goes all over the world, and then comes back to the UK for a second UK leg. Yeah. And this is, so hang on, so the first gig is June 1995, and then they're still on the same tour in July 1996.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
so
one of those big ones.
Yeah, so they've been on the road for, I think it was 18 months in total, something like that. I think they had a best of as well, didn't they, around this time? So these days album came out, and then Crossroads, the best of. So they come back to Milton Keynes, and you go again.
Yeah,
now,
go again.
How did you get to Milton Keynes?
I actually drove up this time.
You drove to Milton Keynes.
Yeah, I did actually. I drove to Cardiff for that, for the one before as well. I had the Cavalier then, the 4x4 Cavalier. So yeah, I drove up to Milton Keynes, and of course Milton Keynes isn't a stadium as such; it's all grass. Have you been there, Alex?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to see Eminem play there in 2003. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's all grass banks, isn't it? Yeah. And so everybody's just sort of lying out on the grass, and it was good. Was this the one where Joan Osborne was playing as well?
Joan Osborne in support, yes. With her smash single, One of Us.
That's right, yeah.
Not a lot else, I don't think.
Yeah.
But.
So but it was all right, but you could tell they were absolutely tired out. I was going to say something else, but they were actually, you could see they weren't really on the game at the time, and they were so worn out. It wasn't as good as the gig, the year before. I actually left a little bit early because, Alex saying the car park was basically a field as well, and it was sort of thing. And I thought, I got to get out before everybody else tries to get out. It'd be a nightmare. And I got obviously a long way to drive back home. So so I did leave a little bit early, but you could tell they weren't the same band at that point. So. Yeah, it was a shame, but it was a experience to go up to Milton Keynes anyway. I've never been there before, I haven't been there since. So yeah, there you go.
The Bon Jovi double bill.
Yes. A treble. They are coming back later on. If we can just creep just minimally into the 2000s. Because there is something that I have to discuss, but it is the year 2000, so I hope we can. Allow it just this once. Nice mention of the Cavalier 4x4 there, by the way.
Yeah. Permanent 4x4.
Greatest car you ever owned?
It was the best car I ever had, yeah. Oh. Definitely. It was a beast. It was really, road holding was absolutely superb. I said it was permanent 4x4, so I couldn't switch. Yeah. But it was a lovely car. I wish I never got rid of it when I did.
So before we go into the final stretch then of Glyn's gigs, I'd like to come in with my gig from the 90s that I wish I could have been at. And I had to think about things like Radiohead at Moles in about 1994, something like that. But I wasn't aware of Radiohead at that point, and I'm obviously very, very young in 1994, so I didn't feel as if I could count it. The gig that I've gone for is from the 31st of July 1999. It was at Morpher Stadium, which is another Welsh venue which is no longer there. Just after this gig, the Bulldozers came in, and it became it was the Liberty Stadium. I think it's called something else now, but it's Swansea City's home stadium. And it's Stereophonics live at Morpher Stadium. So this is a gig that they played in the summer that their second album, Performance and Cocktails, was released. And they're truly a band on the up at this point. So the first album was great, the second album's great, and there's 50,000 who have come to see them at a homecoming gig, essentially. They played pretty much all of those first two albums with a couple of B-sides thrown in as a set list as well. And this is a gig that I was aware of because I was a fan of the band by this point. I knew it was happening. I think I'd read about it in magazines and newspapers and things. I saw a couple of months later that Channel 4 used to broadcast like full-length gigs late at night. I remember seeing later on, I saw Stereophonics at Reading Festival. They had the full set that was on at about 1 a.m. and I spotted it in the TV magazine and got Dad to set the Video Plus up for me so that it would record. But I saw the gig on Channel 4, absolutely blown away by it. And then it came out later on DVD, which I've... But yeah, it's still one that I come back to today. Again, there was a great... I think the Crockett's were in support, and they had Gay Dad, who were another Welsh band at the time. And I think they also had, like right at the start, they had ABCD, who were Wales's premier AC/DC tribute act.
Wales's premier? Oh, yeah.
Yes. So...
Okay.
So yeah, I would have to go for, and I think this is probably the Stereophonics at their absolute peak as well, with two fantastic albums. It's the core three piece, still with Stuart Cable, much missed Stuart Cable on drums, and yeah, I think if I could go back to anyone from the 90s, even though I have to say I don't like standing at gigs like that, I would prefer to be seated, but I would put up with the standing if I could go back in time and be there. So yeah, that's Stereophonics at Morpher in 1999.
Awesome, good choice. I had a feeling you would plump for the Stereophonics. So much Wales in this podcast so far.
There is, and we're going back there again as well for one of the final gigs here. So we're back to Newport this time. Yeah. And this is now, we're getting towards the end of the decade. So it's 1998. Yeah. February 1998. And this is UFO.
UFO, yeah. I've been a big fan of UFO since the mid-80s, I think, when obviously Michael Schenker had joined, and they released some fantastic albums. But then obviously Michael had one of his hissy fits.
He's a bit flighty, isn't he?
He can be very flighty. He's a fantastic guitar player, but he's a bit emotional, isn't he? And things like that. And he had left, and he'd come back, and he left again, and come back. And this, I think, was the last incarnation of UFO with him in it. And I think basically it was the actual UFO from the 70s, 80s, 70s, with Andy Parker on drums, Phil Mogg vocals, Pete Way bass, Paul Raimond, who's no longer with us, on rhythm guitar and keyboards, and Michael Schenker. And it was an awesome gig. I wanted to see him. I had seen him earlier in the 80s with the other guitarist who joined after Michael Schenker left the first time, Paul Chapman, who's no longer with us. Yeah, so it was a real treat to see that band actually play some of the old standards and some of the Dr. Doctor, Shoot, Rock Bottom. All this, it's a fantastic, and seeing Schenker play with that band was really, really awesome, and that will stay with me for a long time. Yeah.
Lovely
of course,
stuff.
we went and saw Michael Schenker ourselves, didn't we?
We did at Salisbury many years later. Yeah.
But that was a fantastic gig. Yeah, it's good.
Nice one.
And again, that was at the Newport Centre, which unfortunately is going to close its doors. I believe they're going to open a new leisure centre, and they will not be having any gigs at these centres.
Let me count up here. So the old Wembley Stadium's gone.
Yeah.
Cardiff Ice Rink's gone.
Yeah.
Newport Leisure Centre's going.
Yeah, going.
You're a bit of a jinx, aren't you?
Oh, Milton Keynes Bowl is still there.
Oh yeah, sorry, Milton Keynes Bowl.
They'll probably sell that to Sainsbury's or something. I don't know. Yeah, eventually.
If we could then creep into the 2000s just for the last one, because this is one that I have. I don't have personal memories of any of what we've spoken about, apart from this one, which is from the 19th of August 2000, and hope nobody minds, but we have to mention it. So this is Bon Jovi again, but this time, and this is one of the final gigs at the old Wembley. So also it closes the circle because we started at the old Wembley Stadium and we're going to end at the old Wembley Stadium. Yeah. So this is one of the last gigs that took place at the old Wembley Stadium. I think it might have been.
It's either the last one or the second to last, because I'm not quite sure. This was a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure they did a show on the Sunday, but it was definitely one of the last two gigs anyway.
Yeah.
That was at the old Wembley. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But why I wanted to talk about this one was that not so much Bon Jovi themselves, but the lineup, because I had obviously got into music myself by this point. I would have been 11 years old, and two of my favourite bands of the time were actually supporting Bon Jovi on this day. So I think opening you had Dum Dums. I don't know if you know Dum Dums, Alex.
I do. I totally recognise that name, but I don't remember anything about them.
So they had one album. They were sort of a forerunner to Busted.
Yeah.
That sort of pop punk young guys.
Yeah, but I think they were. I did like Busted actually, but I think Dum Dums there, because I was actually listening to some of the tracks from that album recently again. Since we mentioned it. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Really, really good. It's a pity they didn't carry on, because they would have. I think they would have made it if they tried. But I think maybe the record company weren't too happy with the way.
Possibly. I mean, I've got some of the second album demos as well, which they made available online. They were demoing for the second album before they got dropped, and it's a lot heavier. It has to be said, the second album. But I've become lucky enough to sort of get to know the lead singer and guitarist Josh Doyle a little bit. We've cultivated a bit of an online relationship over the years. He lives in Nashville now, but we get in touch occasionally with each other, and he's a really good guy. And the Dum Dums were a great band at the time. And also then, following on from Dum Dums, you had, a band that were possibly famous or well known in the year 2000, and then no other time possibly.
Yeah.
So it's Toploader.
Dancing in the Moonlight.
Yes,
I
indeed.
had that album. The second album I ever bought.
Mocker? I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, really? What was the first?
Actually, no, this is not true. I was going to say Performance and Cocktails. The first time I ever bought was Gran Turismo by the Cardigans, and then I think it was Performance and Cocktails, and then Toploader.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But love Toploader at the time. I actually preferred. They had a song called Achilles' Heel, which was on that album.
That was a great song.
Yeah, which I actually preferred to Dancing in the Moonlight. But I remember telling you like the day before, must have been on the Friday, saying if you can get anything Toploader, get it for me. And he came back with a Toploader T-shirt, which was size XL.
So I left.
And I'm 11 years old at the time, and I think there's a picture of me somewhere wearing it, and I've got my arms out, and it's like
probably
the sleeves.
I remember queuing up for that, and it's one of those, because at the old Wembley, obviously, you had the steps. Going up to stuff. Yeah. And of course, all the T-shirt sellers were, and it was absolutely packed. You had to fight your way through, and you're like, So by the time I got there, it's probably that's all they had left.
Yeah.
So I thought, do I disappoint him and not get him anything? So I thought,
there you go.
He'll grow into it.
That's being a great dad. I still haven't grown into it 20 years later. But Bon Jovi were on the Crush tour by then, and that's a crap album, so we won't.
You
won't
love
go
it.
into that. I've got it on double vinyl.
But that was also. I bought the tickets and I got coach up to. That's right. There was a coach tour operator doing the tickets and the thing. So I had to go to Salisbury, pick up the coach, go to London, come back. And when I got back, I don't even know the central car park in Salisbury, but my car was the only car in the car park when I got back. It was like 2:00 in the morning, whatever it was, and I thought, it was really lonely. It was just one single car in the car park. So
Now this would have been the Mondeo by then, wouldn't it?
Probably.
Which you chopped the Cavalier in for, and he never should have done it.
It would have been a bad thing, but
fill it up again.
that was a good gig. Another one. Yeah, they were better that time. Obviously, the time before, but this is obviously a couple of years later, so they were more refreshed on this one. So yeah, it was good. Yeah.
Just before we close, did you have another fantasy gig from the 90s, Alex, that you wish you could have gone to?
Yeah, I am going to chuck this on in because this one the band means a bit more to me than Nirvana did. And this was in 1999, similar to your Stereophonics gig, and it was it's a Limp Bizkit gig, and it's not really a sort of gig as such. It was they were promoting their second album, which was about to come out, Significant Other. To generate publicity for the album, they decided to put on 4 guerrilla gigs where they were basically just going to set up somewhere in a city. I think it was Boston, Detroit, and Chicago. I think they were going to do one at Pontiac, wherever that is, but they didn't end up doing that. They was going to go and set up somewhere, not tell anyone where they were going to play, and then at the last minute they're going to announce it and everyone's going to run down. So yeah, it was just, I still think that's one of the coolest ways of doing live music. I think there's something about that's just so cool and really appeals to me. And this was just at the peak, the point where they were about to kind of go stratospheric. It was their second album, like I said, Significant Other, was the one that sort of made them hit the mainstream. And I think for a brief period, they were probably the biggest band in the world. This is when nu metal was, reigning supreme. After Britpop, and so yeah, it was just the right time. And there's some great videos. There's a great video on YouTube, sort of behind the scenes. I think MTV filmed it. It shows them sort of setting it up and then literally running away from the police midway through the last song they play. And I just think it's just the coolest thing ever. And I would love to have been at one of them, at whichever city. They're all looked pretty cool to me. And it's just, it's my favourite band of all time. And I was kind of getting into them. Maybe it's the following year was when I really got into them. So I didn't only just miss it. I mean, I was in Wiltshire, so I wasn't that close to Boston. I wouldn't have been able to go. But and there's this, I guess, there's a slight. Well, it's kind of laughable to compare Limp Bizkit to the Beatles, but obviously the Beatles did their rooftop gig, and I've always been fascinated by that whole period of their history and that gig in particular. So I think there's just something cool about a band playing on the roof, just plugging their instruments in and just playing for whoever's there. I think that's really cool. So that would have been my my number one choice if I could have gone back in time and seen anyone in the 90s.
Fantastic, and a very, very worthy choice as well. Well, Glyn, thank you so much for coming in and sharing your memories with us tonight. It's been great having you on and working with you on the airwaves again, as we used to do. Yeah. Will you come back some other time and talk to us about something else that you remember?
if you really want me to, I'll be very happy to. If we can find something else to talk about.
I'm sure we can. Well, that's absolutely brilliant. Glyn Joslin, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thanks to Glyn for coming in and taking us through all the gigs he went to in the 90s. I know he's been a bit worried about that this week doing the recording. He didn't think he'd be up to the standard of this podcast. But then I reminded him to actually listen to the podcast, and he realised that he would be absolutely fine.
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was great to hear from him. I like that. When you feel nostalgic on someone else's behalf, I was getting that sort of vibe from that.
Well, I can assure you he is available for more at any time we will need him. So, So great. I'm sure, listeners, if you enjoyed that, I'm sure that Glyn will be back very, very soon.
I should have said this before we started doing this outro, but I forgot to say that I do have 3 very quick comments from Reddit. I put the thing out on Reddit saying, does anyone have anything? So I did. I put this sort of question out on the 90s music Reddit or subreddit. The question of what dream gigs do you wish you'd seen in the 90s? Unfortunately, got taken down by the moderator of that subreddit for some reason very quickly. Briefly said Lilith Fair, who I've never heard of. Have you ever heard of them?
No, can't say I have. Lilith is Frasier's wife in Cheers. That's all that means to me.
Yeah, same here. John Raho said U2's Zoo TV tour. And then Valka Tahoe said they missed Pink Floyd in 1994 at the Sun Bowl, which I regret massively. So good. Thank you to those 3 people for responding before it was rudely taken down by the moderators. We will try and do that again, I think, with different topics. Try and get
I can't believe that. Do they not know who we are?
Apparently not. No. Apparently not.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Yes, we will persevere with that, and we will bring you the answers as they come in. Next week, we are going to be talking sport once again, and we are going to be picking the podcast's 90s Cult 11. So that's your Premier League players from the era who may be unspectacular, maybe just your regular Joe early 90s Premier League player who sticks in the mind for some reason and is still has a bit of a cult following, maybe. So we're going to be picking our Cult 11. Alex, do you want to remind everybody how they can get in touch with us before we depart?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that sounds like a good topic that I know a lot of you will want to have some say on. So this is a perfect opportunity to get in touch if you haven't done so in the past, or if you have, then get in touch again. You can find us on Twitter at allright90s. You can email us on allright90s@gmail.com, or you can find us on facebook.com/allright90s. And that's all letters, no numbers. Allright90s.
Yes, look us up. Let us know your own cult players from the period, and we'll be sure to read them out next time. And also, of course, let us know about any of your dream 90s gigs, anything we've spoken about before, any ideas for stuff you want us to talk about in the future. Just get in touch with us about anything, essentially. If it's 90s, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly. Don't hold back.
So until next time then, it's the end of another episode, and it's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me. Cheerio.
See you later.